arrived in Arusha, Tanzania, and performed very well. The university therefore continues to improve its teaching and learning and research for both faculty and learners. In a bid to streamline this area, the university has established the Center for Research, Teaching and Learning and appointed Professor Koi Tirima as the director. Under this center, unlike the traditional lecture-based learning, we as a university have adopted the problem-based learning as a new learning paradigm method that centers on what students do rather than what teaching staff does. This particular method makes learning relevant, providing an active learning experience rather than focusing on learning as a passive activity, memorizing things which people don't remember afterwards, increases learners' motivation to engage in meaningful research, and by collaborating with international recognized partners in Australia to generate, preserve, and transfer knowledge, which will transform the lives of students, staff, and our communities within our sphere of influence. At the beginning of January 2013, we are making a major step through the Regional Center for Enterprise Development in partnership with the International Labour Organization Youth Enterprise Facility. We'll start offering the pioneer program called the Practical Entrepreneurship Training Program throughout the country. This program targets students who wish to venture into business or start career in business and management, and those interested about entrepreneurship and would like to become entrepreneurs wishing to improve their businesses and management skills. It's only yesterday that we graduated 30 of the staff who are going to be involved in this program, both within the university and outside the universities. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look forward to the future, the challenges that face us are challenges of globalization, which affect all the countries of the world: economic, cultural, and environment, social and political aspects. This has created a number of opportunities in the 21st century for all universities, while at the same time impacted both positively and negatively on institutions of higher learning. Because, according to WTO, education has been turned into an educational commodity of international trade, just like coffee and tea. That is the challenge, but opens also great opportunities for access to higher education to many people. The development of Inorero University Virtual Campus, which has already enrolled over 350 students studying online from many parts of the world, such as Fiji. We have therefore engaged with Kenyan embassies wherever they are, and they have agreed to support our students to sit examinations in the embassies. Again, a first for Inorero University. Thank you once again for joining us today. And on behalf of Inorero University, we again congratulate all those who are graduating today. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy 2013 with great opportunity. God bless you. And now I take this opportunity to invite our Chairman of Council, Engineer John Waweru, to address the congregation.
The guest of honor, Mr. Tony Mwai, General Manager of IBM East Africa, the Chancellor of Inorero University, Honorable F.T. Nyamu, the trustees, the council members, Senate and faculty members, invited guests, parents, and graduates. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the council to welcome graduates, parents, and guardians to this fourth graduation ceremony of Inorero University. At the same time, I count it as a great privilege and honor to have Mr. Tony Mwai as our guest of honor. We love the work IBM is doing in East Africa in building competitive ICT sector. The research lab established by IBM at Catholic University is an appropriate recognition of ICT innovation space that continues to grow in Kenya. Nairobi has been termed the Silicon Savannah. ICT startups in Kenya can only continue to grow. There is therefore a big shortage and competition among institutions to develop the necessary ICT skills needed by the industry. The theme of our graduation ceremony, opportunities and challenges of globalization of higher education, the praise of innovation and enterprise. This ties very well with the education reform agenda of Kenya. 2012 will be remembered as the year of tremendous education reforms. The education space reforms continues on a very definitive path with the development of no less than 8 education bills which are on the floor of Parliament. The pertinent bills for reform of education sector are the Basic Education Bill, the University Bill, and the Technical and Vocational Education and Training. I urge both staff, students, as well as parents and guardians to study these bills in detail so as to remain abreast of the major changes that are envisaged. The other important bill to the education sector is the one of science, technology, and innovation. The setting up of important new institutions, such as Innovation Agency, have been proposed. The role of technology in education will continue to grow and expand. This is very well described in the Vision 2030 blueprint, where ICT is one of the major pillars of development of Kenya's economy. The Konza City development is hinged on the development of ICT, highly skilled human resource bioeducation institutions. I urge Inorero staff and students to continue to expand the necessary skill set, and infrastructure to meet this great demand. The establishment of optical fiber infrastructure in all parts of Kenya will continue to provide opportunities for innovation in education delivery through e-learning technologies. No university can afford to ignore the new education developments needed continuously in this area. Turning to those graduating today, I trust you have been well prepared for the field work by the faculty of Inorero University. I recognize the faculty who have instilled in you the necessary knowledge and skills to fit you in the field of work and personal innovation and entrepreneurship. I congratulate the graduates also for their great achievement through handwork. This then is a day of celebration for your well-earned qualifications. I recognize and applaud all parents and guardians who have supported you all along, morally and sacrificially. Congratulations once again. And it is now my great pleasure to invite Mr. Tony Mwai, Country General Manager for IBM, to address you. Thank you.
Inorero University Council members, the Senate, graduates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm glad to have this opportunity to address you all on this very auspicious occasion, and I congratulate all the graduates. I know you've put a lot of hard work to get to this point, and you have your future ahead of you. Let me talk about some things. There's a globalization trend in higher education, and there is the importance of innovation and enterprise in higher education, and those of you who are going out to the workforce and to the marketplace need to understand that and embrace it. Skills have become the global currency of the 21st century. Skills and currency for the 21st century. That's a very important message. It's a very important message for you to understand. Because if you look at the person next to you, Maybe it's your friend, but that's a person that you're going to compete with when you go out to the marketplace. Look at the person next to you, please. Right? That is the person that you're going to compete with. But that's not the only person that you're going to compete with for jobs. There's other students, other graduates, graduating from universities in this country. But it doesn't stop there. Perhaps at this very moment in time, there's a graduation ceremony happening in China, or in Latin America, or in India. And young people like you are graduating today. Those are the people that you're competing against. It's a global economy, and you have to be aware of it. We live in a knowledge-based global society. You've all heard about the global economic slowdown, the global economic crisis. Skills and the need for skills to be able to compete globally is very important. Please understand that. And skills is not just a degree, right? You have to be a life learner. You have to learn continuously. You have to evolve. You have to learn new skills. Find out what is happening in the global marketplace so that you continue to be globally competitive. And just as the currency can depreciate, like the Kenya shilling can depreciate or the US dollar can depreciate, so can your skills if you do not evolve, if you do not change, if you do not continuously increase your skills. Now, the world is changing and it's impacting all of us. Think about this. Maybe you have a cousin, 10-year-old student that goes to school today. So just think about this. A 10-year-old student today will experience a dramatically different global society when she enters the workforce. See, I'm going to make sure I've got the gender thing right? When she enters the workforce in 2020. That's 8 years from now. Because technology is driving so much change. And in fact, the statistics show that the current rate of information growth about doubles the amount of knowledge in the world every 2 years. So every 2 years, what we know today, all the world's knowledge that we have today, 2 years from now, it will double. This is a huge challenge for you as people going out into the marketplace, for people who are in schools today, for businesses and governments that are operating and trying to engage in a global economy. So, if a primary student today who's in year one, just the first year of primary school, think about them walking around with a backpack, that let's assume that all of the world's knowledge could fit in that backpack today. Okay? By the time that student who's in year one of primary school today finishes high school in 2020, the amount of the world's knowledge would fit in 64 backpacks. 64 backpacks. So the point is that there's so much change that's happening. Technology is driving a lot of change. And so the challenge to you, the challenge to us as a society, the challenge to everybody in this world is how do we use all this information? How do we use it? And how do we make it relevant? So the skills that you need for a knowledge-based economy for today and in the future is going to be based on, I think, 3 things. The ability to have critical thinking, to have critical thought, to be able to critically think, to have information literacy, how to handle the wealth of information, discern which pieces of that information are important and which is for reference. And you have to be able to be creative. You have to have the creativity and the ability to innovate, to solve problems that we haven't even encountered as yet. We've not encountered them as yet. So let me switch gears. So I've talked about globalization. I've talked about the need for you to evolve your skills. Let me put it in context of the company that I work for, IBM. It's a big company. We have 450,000 people that work for the company in 170 countries around the world, including Kenya. So it's a big company. Last year, we celebrated our 100th year in business. The business was incorporated in 1911 in the US and, of course, has expanded since. Now, I'm assuming most people have heard of IBM, right? It's a computer company. For us to have survived for 100 years, it was not trivial. It wasn't easy, and in fact, sometimes very difficult. This company started out by making weighing scales for meat, slicers for cheese, precision weighing equipment for cheese and meat and other agricultural products. It's a good thing we didn't stay in that business because we would be out of business by now, I'm sure, right? But then we saw changes happening in the 20s and 1930s and 1940s, and so they got rid of those old businesses and transitioned to new businesses, making tabulating machines and calculators and typewriters. Maybe many of you are too young to have ever physically seen a typewriter. I was having a discussion with some of my colleagues here about, I once gave a lecture at one of the local universities, and I asked people to put up their hands, the students, of how many people had actually physically seen a typewriter, and very few of them had. So then I asked, how many of you have seen typewriters in a movie? Many more people put up their hands. Some people had no idea what I was talking about. But we were in that business. It was a great business, lots of innovation around typewriter technology, but we didn't stop there because the world was changing, and we got into computing, IT, and today we are a very different company from where we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, even 100 years ago. This has a parallel to you, and this is why I'm giving you IBM's story. It's about reinventing. We, as a company, had to reinvent ourselves. You, as an individual that has a current set of skills right now, will have to reinvent yourself because the world is changing, because the people that you're competing with are reinventing themselves. They are going after the opportunities that exist in the global marketplace. Now, within IBM, we had a near-death experience. That's what I call it, a near-death experience, where the company was about to dissolve into multiple companies because the world had changed, and we had not changed quickly enough with what was going on in the marketplace. But we went through a rebirth, a reinvention, and like I said, we evolved, we took on new parts of businesses, we created new businesses, and now we're a very different company from where we were before. And here we are in Africa, expanding in Kenya, and really trying to make a difference in all the marketplaces where we engage. So, given that historical perspective, here are three things that an organization, an institution, an individual have to think about. Let me talk about it from an organizational point of view. So the three things are, how must an organization change? How does an organization have to change as the world economy changes? It has to change, but how are you going to effect that change? Second perspective to think about, how is an organization going to change in response to technological changes? Right? And maybe this is probably a question and thought process that the institution in our university needs to go through. Right? And the third thing is, how does an organization remain the same at its core in the face of a changing world? What is the DNA? What is your DNA as a person? Your DNA is inside you. That doesn't change. That's the marker of who you are. But what has to change is the skills that you have, your approach to life, your approach to family, to community, to each other, and what impact you yourself are going to have in your community and in the world. Okay? So the measure of any institution, whether it's a business, a private business, whether it's a government, whether it's a university institution such as this, is what is the impact of that institution, of that entity, and how is the world going to be different because it existed? So think about that in your own sense, right? What impact am I going to make? And how is the world going to be different because I lived in the world? How is my community going to be different because I lived in that community? How is my family going to be different because I'm a member of that family? Right? These are life thoughts that you need to have, and you need to apply it in terms of how you're going to be out there in the workforce and what you do with your life. These are very key things to think about. So that's the story of IBM. Let me tell you my story. The short version, let me put it that way. So I was born and raised here in Kenya. I did my first degree at Kenyatta University. I then went to the US, did my master's degree in computer science, and I joined IBM in 1988. Yeah, I know you can't believe that I started working that long ago. Okay, I did, but but anyway. So I joined IBM in 1988, and I've been there since, by the way. So that's 24 years. 24 years. So I joined as a programmer. I was very into technology, very keen to learn as much as I could, but I was a quiet person. Not many people accuse me of being that right now, but back then I was quietly doing my work. I was working hard, year after year after year. And then I decided somewhere along the way that, you know what, I want to be more involved. I think I have more to give. I think I have a unique set of experiences, background, history, skills. How can I apply them in this work environment? Now, working in a company like IBM, I joined in the US, in New York. And all the other people that I worked with came from Harvard and Massachusetts Institute of Technology and all these whiz-bang schools. But I didn't have that same experience. I had my experience and my educational background. But I decided, no, I have something within me that I think I need to bring out, I need to unleash. So the thing that I did, I'll just give you this one example. I saw the need for something in the department that I worked in, and I saw the need to write a little software program that would make us more productive. That for me was the light bulb that comes on. In business, we call it the inflection point, where things change. And that for me is what changed, and the business saw that I could add even more value, and so they put me in other positions of leadership. I got to do some international assignments, so I got some global experience, and then here I am having the opportunity to come and run the business in my home country, Kenya, which was fantastic. But let me tell you another story. I remember one of my mentors, it's a guy from South Africa. We were sort of we were comparing notes about this inflection point, or the moment when the light bulb comes on and you switch from being just one of the regular workers to somebody who then aspires for and becomes a leader. So he was telling me his story, very similar. He saw the need to write a software program, because we were both software developers at the time. And in his case, he sat in probably an auditorium just like this, a bunch of IBM employees, and they were giving out prizes, much like those prizes that you see over there, and somebody else got a prize for the work that he did. But he was a quiet person. He decided, let me not toot my own horn. Somebody else walked up to get the prize. Before the person walked and sat down, he went outside and cried. This is a man who was probably 26, 27 years old. He cried, came back the next day and put his resignation papers in front of his manager. And after some discussion, and they found out that he was the brains behind whatever that piece of work was. The rest was history for him. He's now one of our significant leaders. So I tell you these stories because you need to look at yourself and say, what am I capable of? What will I do with what I have, what I've just learned? What difference am I going to make? What impact will I have? Those are the things to think about. And remember, find your inflection point, or the thing that lights turns the light bulb on. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but always look for it. Always yearn. Think about what are your strengths, what impact you're going to make, what kind of innovation can you be involved in, or you can create yourself. Remember, the person that you're competing with, the people that you're competing with are not just the person sitting next to you. They're sitting in China today. They're sitting in India today. They're sitting in Brazil, in Latin America. They're in the US, they're in Europe. They're all over, because we're in a global economy. And as I said at the beginning, skills are the currency of the 21st century. That's what's the trade between countries. I think the Vice Chancellor mentioned it. The trade between companies now in this global economy is going to be based on, in one sense, natural resources, but more importantly, in the knowledge-based economy, it's going to be based on skills. Which countries, the countries that have the strongest level and the widest levels of skills, the deepest skills, and the critical mass of skills, those are the countries that are going to get ahead, okay? And you're in one of those countries, and you are part of creating that critical mass. So, go forth, go into the world with open eyes, an open mind, find your light bulb, find your inflection point. And I'll leave you with one last thought. I think it was President Kennedy who said in, I think it was like in the 60s, of course he was the US president, one of the most famous US presidents. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? Congratulations. Thank you.
I'd like to request the Vice-Chancellor in Herero University to welcome the Chancellor to address the fourth congregation of Herero University. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, please.
Allow me to introduce you to our Chancellor, Honorable F.T. Nyamo, and it's my very, very great pleasure to, first of all, appreciate the support that he continues to give and the inspiration to the university. And it is my very great pleasure to invite him to address this fourth congregation of Herero University. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm told that the theme of this graduation is opportunities and challenges of globalization in higher education. It is the right place because we are